appointments, MOS, MOA, GBOS, joint meeting agenda. Do some general notices, and we'll jump into the meeting. Girdwood Board of Supervisors committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act, as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25 public meetings. Girdwood Board of Supervisors operates under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standards of Conduct. I call the meeting to order at 6:02. My name is Mike Edgington. I'm co-chair and land use supervisor, and we'll just do roll call first.
Okay. Brianna Sullivan, co-chair, Parks and Recreation, cemetery supervisor.
Jennifer Wingard, roads and utilities supervisor.
And GBOS members on.
Yep, Guy Wade, fire department.
And Amanda Sassy, public safety supervisor.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any disclosures? Any GBOS members have disclosures today?
I have one. One of the applicants was our realtor in Girdwood.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I was going to say I don't think that that probably applies to many of us. So I don't think that rises to be a substantial conflict of interest. Amanda?
The PSAC seat appointment employed me at one point, but I am no longer employed by her.
Okay, I would say that does not rise to a significant conflict of interest or a substantial conflict. I will hand over the chair to you briefly, Brianna, because I have a declaration, I guess.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I'm the same. I have one of the applicants was actually my landlord for a while. I first moved here.
Okay.
Many years ago.
Thank you. I also agree with the previous rulings that should not rise to a substantial conflict. And Mike, you may have the chair back.
Okay. Any other disclosures?
Well, me sort of since I'm on the list. I would just like to say that that was a conditional acceptance, and I would argue to not be on there if not needed. So that is my opinion about my name on the list of nominations.
Thank you. Okay. Anything from you, Guy? Everyone else has had a go?
No. Yeah, no. And I agree with your concurrence on those.
Okay. Thank you. Agenda. So I would seek a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
This is Brianna. I move to approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Guy. If I don't hear any objections or amendments.
I would like to amend.
Sure.
Under agenda item number 2, I would just like to clarify that those our discussion of committee appointments, I would like to see that also including the discussion of the purpose of the committee and our expectations for the committee prior to the appointments. It might be taken as being a given, but I just want to make clear that it is.
I think that makes perfect sense. Is there any objections to that? Okay. So I guess we've accepted that amendment, unless I hear an objection. So approval of the, unless I hear objections to the agenda as amended. None, so by consent we'll approve that. Announcements. Public is encouraged to ask questions and provide comment. Please raise your hand in person or virtually and wait to be acknowledged. To help discussions stay productive, please direct your comments to the board rather than other members of the public. Keep your comments focused on the business under discussion and please be respectful of everyone's opinions. We can dive straight into the agenda. So item number 1, Public Safety Advisory Committee Seat A appointment. Staff.
So Emily Lewis, a local resident, has submitted her name. She was the only applicant within the nomination period to submit, and she self-nominated herself. In the packet here, there is her resume and her experience here in town, and she has a strong interest in serving on the Public Safety Advisory Committee. There's one vacant spot on there, so we're looking for that.
Okay, Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone online. I mean, I know Emily a little bit, and I think she'd be a great candidate. I think we can probably move straight to a vote then to approve Emma's appointment, or otherwise. Can you do a roll call, please?
We need a motion as well.
Sorry, yeah.
This is Brianna. I move that we accept Emily Lewis as the new Public Safety Advisory Committee seat A. Is that what it is?
Yep.
A.
And I'll second. This is Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. Now we can do a roll call vote.
Okay, Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Jennifer Winegard,
Yes.
Guy Wade,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Emily. We will now move on to item number 2, Holton Hills Housing Advisory Committee appointments. So can you remind us the wording we had on the motion at the last meeting, please? Margaret or Kyle?
Sure.
We'll start from there.
Let me back up and go to the minutes.
Then while you're finding that, the model is the ad hoc committee we had for policing. We had the police issue a few years ago. And we had while GBOS made the decision, there was an appointment of 4 or 5, I think, community members to sort of look into some of the issues in detail and sort of just be a broader sounding board and for people to actually, sort of go and focus on it and investigate, spend some of their time investigating it. And that formed an advisory commission before we decided what to do with the police issue. And then that came to, then GBOS actually made the final decision in that case about what to do, because that was a tax cut. So that's kind of the model of how we would do this. So we would have, I think 5 was the number. I think we actually said 5 in the last meeting. 5 seats, members of the public who are not on GBOS. Obviously could be on land use or other committees. And the intent is to have them discuss the project and understand the details and see if there's a way we can either it can be changed or what the position formally should be for that. And that would be advised. GBOS will still have any final decision on anything GBOS does.
I think, and I don't know if it's in the minutes, but we may have mentioned it could be 6 if we decide 6 was a better number than amount of applicants. But that depended on the qualities or the expertise in each of the applicants.
That's what I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to find the exact language we had in the motion.
So are we?
The way I remember this is when it was a comment by Connie Chimura that was kind of the catalyst for this at the town hall meetings, where she talked about wanting it to be more of a committee, say, of 5 people. And that's where I remember 5 first being mentioned and the committee being mentioned, although this is something I've advocated for just such a committee for some time. However, I'm not sure that there is any magic number to 5 that got thrown on the table, and then we didn't really question it because I think there is a need to have a committee like this. And so I don't know that, I think that we were so willing to say yes to committee that I'm not sure we spent time and discussion on 5. And the reason why I would call that into question now has a little bit to do with the wonderful pool of applicants that we got. So of course we wouldn't have known. I would say that if we don't do 5, maybe 7 would be logical, just so we keep it odd. So, for the sake of voting simplicity. And then there's one other thing I want to talk about, and I don't know if this is the right time to throw it out. So with the permission of the chair here.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I don't know if we might want to discuss whether or not this committee is ultimately going to be, I appreciate that it would be modeled after the police dynamic, but I'm wondering if it makes more sense to have this committee going to be under land use, report to land use instead of GBOS directly, even though we're the one engendering it. Like, I think we can engender this, I think we can get it going. But I wonder if ultimately it's operated through us or through land use, since housing feels more like a land use issue than police did.
Yeah, I mean, we could do either, I think, but land use would have to do it if it was, it would be faster for us to do it. Land use would have to do it if it was under land use. It would be, if we set it up as a committee parallel to land use, it'd be the same as land use, trails.
Similar to how trails works.
Yeah, so trails is a permanent standing committee, land use is a standing committee. This would be an ad hoc committee just for this one topic.
Okay, all right. All right, so then my question is about the number.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I agree. I think I just can't remember if we actually had a number. If we didn't, that's fine. If we did, we can still change it.
Approximately 5.
Yeah, that makes sense. So 5 or 7.
Okay.
And to chime in, my only comment with 7 would be the increased complications of people coordinating schedules to meet at a certain time, whether it's virtual or not. And then if they're absent, they could still have at least 5 present, hopefully, at each meeting. But I'm open to the approximate. So.
Okay.
And I have another question. Connected, Mike, to you, sorry, to the chair here about the introduction on this.
Yeah.
You
So
mentioned,
we should discuss the purpose.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and in particular, I want to know what happens if this committee decides that the best thing to do is not to liaison.
Sorry.
What if the committee decides that the best thing to do here is to fight it rather than to negotiate with it? Like, are we giving the committee the power to say the Girdwood community doesn't want this?
I would think so. I think the committee, I mean, this is kind of self-organizing within the framework we give it. That's how we normally would do.
Right.
That's how we typically do committees. So, you know, they would meet, set a chair, they'd have a framework of what they're supposed to do. And, you know, effectively a kind of implicit time limit. And then if, as a group, they decide that, you know, this project should go ahead, and that's the decision they make, and that gets reported back to us, and we have a kind of formal process. And if they decide, you know, it's perfect in every way, which I doubt will be the conclusion, then we would take that on board as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board about the kind of purpose or scope? We can probably discuss this in more detail later if necessary, but I feel we've got it's reasonably clear, but maybe it isn't. Seeing any other questions? So I would suggest we have a motion if we're going to change the number to 7. We should do a motion to do that, or we can discuss the applicants first. I don't mind.
I would like to discuss the talents that each applicant has or their resume outstanding has. We could start from the order. It's just a random order. Or just which ones are construction or finance or real estate.
There was one thing I should have mentioned. So we did give a time limit for when we had to get the applications in. And I know a couple of people were late, and there's also a question about the qualifications of one of the members. So perhaps we should just make a decision about whether we're going to accept make a formal decision on whether we're going to accept late applicants or not. Because I think that I believe the last two, Brooke and Nico as well, sent in the information late. Is that correct?
Well, so Nathan was nominated from outside.
Okay.
Well before the deadline, but he sent his resume and information in over the weekend. Brooke
Just through.
didn't respond until Saturday, and she provides an explanation in her letter. So they've all been presented to you in that way.
Okay, and I think Nico also sent a resume this afternoon.
Correct.
Yes,
Yes.
Nico did send his this afternoon, and he was nominated.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Okay.
And sorry, can you speak to one of that last nomination that was actually one of my nominations, but I didn't get it in before the deadline because I didn't have a chance. I didn't hear back from her in time. She was out of state, as she explains in her letter. But and then I didn't see a point in retroactively nominating, but that nomination was that application was at my request and invitation.
Good. So What I'm going to suggest then is if somebody wants to propose a motion to accept all of the list there, plus Nico also sent in. So this is the self-nomination letter of interest, and then we can discuss the upper list as well, because there's one person on the upper list who didn't send in a nomination. It's Chris Wilson.
So I'll move that we accept all of the self-nominations / letters of interest.
Right.
I'll second that motion.
And just to clarify, that would include Nico, who sent in his confirmation this afternoon.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So we have the motion to accept the self-nominations, at least the late documents from the self-nominations, which are the list presented in the packet plus Nico. It's been seconded, it's been proposed and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Sure. Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Fiona Sullivan,
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Guy Wade,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Excellent. There's, I think, two more issues on this. One is how we would normally how the committees would be set up. They don't have to be for this, but normally we would have, you would have to be a member of resident or business owner, or at least business owner and have a place of business physically here, or property owner to be qualified. Or I think there's something else about non-profits. I don't believe Sam falls under any of those categories. Is that correct?
I would probably say yes. I mean, he has a business that works out of here, but they no longer have a storefront here.
Yeah.
He doesn't reside in Gerwood anymore. He has employees that are based here, but
Yeah,
as an individual, no, he doesn't fully qualify.
but it's probably on the margins because I think, yeah, you could see an argument. It's a place of business. They don't have a physical storefront, but they clearly do business, probably a lot of business in this community. So I think we should have either a discussion or maybe a decision on whether we can consider Sam as a nominee or not.
So I'd like to address that. I know I've talked with Sam about this in the past, and he's mentioned some reservations about it, but he has an extraordinary history with this valley. And one could even argue that there might be some benefit in having somebody on the committee that doesn't have vested business and that has business experience here, but not current vested interest. I mean, I don't think there's any evident self-interest for him in being on this committee. I think this is about genuinely trying to give back to the community, whether or not he resides next door. And I almost feel, I know this is stretching it, and I believe I wouldn't argue the rules for land use and the voting members of land use, but I think an argument could be made that we should allow this regardless, as a committee with separate and unique rules.
Okay. Any other comments, or we can go, if you actually want to turn that into a motion,
I have a comment.
then we can discuss it.
Yeah.
Amanda?
If, I don't know that we made the decision on whether or not this would fall under GBOS or land use. I think that land use has similar rules in that voting members are needing to be residents or business owners within the area. And so under those rules, I would say that I don't believe Sam would qualify, as much as I appreciate him as an individual and what he's brought to the community and what he could bring to that committee. I just don't think that's maybe a correct way to staff the committee.
Okay. Any
Yeah,
other? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment. I agree with Jennifer on this, just because I worked with Sam on other boards, and he's diligent and he's going to be there, and his history here in Girdwood is, I think it'd be, invaluable. I think it would be helpful for the committee and his input as well. I don't think he has I feel certain he's not doing this for some gain on his part, and it's more of just giving back to the community. That's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Brianna?
This is Brianna. I agree with Jennifer and Guy, and for the same reasons they brought up, and all the business that still or was going on in the last several years, whether the office is here or not, they still care about what's past, present, and future. So whether the vote is for land use or not is not a concern of mine right now.
Okay, so then I'd entertain a motion, just to make this really clear, entertain a motion to say we accept Sam's nomination as being in the spirit, if not the letter.
I will move that we
Okay.
accept.
Thank you. Can I hear a second, please?
I'll second. This is Brianna.
Thank you, Brianna. So roll call vote?
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Guy Wade,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
I would like to abstain, please.
Okay. Motion passes 4-0. 4-0, 1 abstain.
Okay. Just one more comment about it. Technically, we're not supposed to abstain unless we've been recused.
I vote no then.
Thank you. I hate to put you in that position, but you can do the same to me at some point. Thank you. The only other question I think we have here is the question about Chris, who somebody else nominated, but we didn't hear from him. I don't know if anybody has any more info. I don't think he's online.
No. I think we ever heard directly from Chris.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Somebody online about that? I believe that nomination came from Lene, so I wonder if Lene had spoken to him or if he wasn't clear that he was supposed to also submit a letter, or if he just.
Lene, do you have a comment on that?
I'm sorry, I need you guys, it's so hard to hear you guys. Can you repeat that for me?
Sure,
Yes,
sorry.
sorry. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Lene, this is Jennifer, and my question was about whether or not Chris knew he was nominated, accepted the nomination, is truly interested. Does his lack of sending in a letter of interest reflect not being that interested, or did he maybe not know?
Gotcha. No, Chris, I communicated with him before because I didn't want to nominate anybody who didn't have interest in serving, and he is interested in serving. And to me, with his experience as a business owner here in Girdwood and his struggles for staffing, I think he's integral to have someone such as him as a business community member on the board, and he is willing to serve the community in that capacity.
Thank you. Right. Okay. So I think it probably makes sense to have a motion one way or the other about whether to accept Chris in the list as well. We have 9 people down there now. Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. And could I have a second, please?
I'll second this, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. So the motion was whether to accept Chris as a nominee for the committee. If you could do a roll call, please.
Sure. Mike Edgington,
No.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy,
Yes.
Guy Wade.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, great. So we now have 10 candidates. Okay. I think the last question is how many people we're going to appoint. We initially said 5. We can change that if we want to tonight, given the much larger pool of candidates. So I'd entertain a motion to propose another number if anyone wants to do that.
This is Brianna. I move that we appoint 7 nominees.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jennifer. So last time we said, we suggested 5, but we haven't seen the nominations. Now we can see the people who've been who've expressed an interest. So we're discussing increasing it to 7. So the vote would be yes for 7 and no for 5, to keep it at 5. Roll call, please.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Guy Wade,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. So now we'll actually get to now we've dealt with all the preamble, we'll get to the appointment. What I was going to suggest is if any candidates want to introduce themselves, then sort of give us a 1 or 2 minute introduction. They're welcome to, but they're also welcome not to if they don't want to. I think we know most of the people on the board who have applied.
Guys.
Guy.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Jennifer, are you still on this list? I
No,
didn't quite.
no, I'm not. My name was on there if just on the off chance that yeah, anyway, no.
This would be people who are not on GBOS.
Thank you.
Okay. So if anybody who's a nominee wishes to just give a brief introduction, they're welcome to. It's fine otherwise, and then we'll go through and have a brief discussion amongst ourselves. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Does anybody have any comments on the candidates? Oh, sorry. I can't quite read that. Erin. Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, hi. I just thought I'd at least say that I'm here, and I gave a lot of thought before I submitted my letter of interest. As probably most of you know, I've sat on a lot of different committees throughout my 25 plus years here, and sat on a term of GBOS, and I just feel that I have a good open mind and wide-ranging view, and I'd be happy to be a part of this committee if you so choose. And just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Erin. Would anyone else like to say anything and introduce themselves? Okay, so move on to discussion. Actually, before that, I'm going to choosing 7 out of 10 is kind of a tricky problem. So what I'm going to suggest is when it comes to voting, if each of us names 7 people, then we'll add them up, and that should give us kind of, probably there'll be names that everybody mentions. There'll be names 4 people mentioned, 3 people mentioned, and we'll go down the rank. And if there's a tie at 7th or 8th, then we'll have a separate vote for that. Does mean more work for staff. I do apologize. Okay.
Can I just mention one thing about that? You mentioned several times wanting to make sure that the
Yes.
committee ended up being as diverse as possible.
Yes.
Is it possible that method might, one other approach might be just to at least make sure that we get a tenant representative on right from the get-go, and then go for that process that you mentioned, or?
So we could, yeah. So what we could do, we could say there's, particular seats reserved for particular things, if you want to make a proposal to do that. And then we have to decide who's qualified for those sub-seats.
Okay, well, I would propose that we have a sub-seat for a tenant representative, that no matter what happens to whoever we nominate, it gets filled by someone who can, in one way or another, represent long-term tenants in Girdwood. Yes,
Okay.
that is a motion.
I'll second this motion that was just stated by Jennifer.
Okay. So we can still do that within the process I suggested. So we'll make sure we can still nominate 7 people, and then at the end, when we add them all up, well, the highest one who qualifies for the tenant seat gets that, and the next 6 get those. Okay. So So that's a suggestion. It's been, there's been motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? Okay, we'll go through another roll call vote.
Mike Edgington,
Yes.
Brianna Sullivan,
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard,
Yes.
Guy Wade,
Yes.
Amanda Sassy.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Good. Okay, great. Does anyone want to talk about either candidates in general or particular candidates, or make a case or any other comments before we go ahead and vote?
Yes. I want to speak to Brooke Lavender because some people might not know her. I got to know her during COVID on early morning walks that were so dark that I'm not even entirely sure even now that I know what she looks like. But I have been really impressed. The reason why I asked her to potentially to put forward her interest, and she is very interested, is her connection not only with long-term, the experience of being a long-term tenant, but also her experience providing childcare in the Valley. So she overlaps in a way that I thought was really useful, since it ties into another concern with Holton Hills, and that is the childcare issue.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have a comment or discussion?
I think I am. I have not had time to look at everyone's resume, but I'm curious if the most construction experience is Mr. Hammond. I think the answer is yes. If anyone else had time to look through and clarify, that's my only question right now.
I'm sorry, Brianna, are you speaking to building construction?
Yes.
Any construction, okay.
I didn't see any.
Who did you say had the most experience? Was that Hamry?
Yes, I'm asking.
I
Or-
also believe Ellis has experience in construction. Nathan Ellis.
Correct.
Definitely this week.
Okay, thank you. I did actually write a note about his development next to it, so definitely experience there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll just make one comment, not as the chair. Yeah, my comment is I think I know everybody on this list, and I think any of them are great candidates for this. So we're going to select 7 people just to keep the numbers manageable. But thank you everyone for putting a name forward. And I think I'm happy with pretty much anyone from that list.
Thank you, Mike, for your comment. I concur, and you can have the chair back.
Okay, so when we vote, we're going to name, each of the 5 of us are going to name 7. We're going to basically name us 7 people. I think Margaret is probably going to keep a list who these are. I will as well, so we can compare at the end. And then we'll take we'll have to work out who is a tenant. I think we know, but we'll have to confirm. We'll take at least the highest scoring tenant, and then the next 6, and that will give us 7 names, which will include at least 1 tenant. Okay. So it's kind of a roll call, but we're each going to list 7 names.
Okay, I'll start with Mike Edgington.
Oh, I was afraid you were going to start with me. I haven't actually. Actually, can you give me a second? Because I was talking.
Brianna, are you ready?
I am ready.
Like at the restaurant, everybody's ordering, but no.
Yeah, right.
Brianna knows, let's go with you.
Okay. Nico Rains, Lisa Miles, Dave Hamry, Aaron Ecker, Sam Daniels, Matthew Schuster, and Nathan Ellis.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer.
Dave Hamry, Emma Kramer, Aaron Ecker, Sam Daniels, Brooke Lavender, Nico Rains, Chris Wilson.
Okay, all right, Guy,
Yeah, Emma Kramer, Sam Daniels, Nathan Ellis, Aaron Ecker, Lisa Miles, Nico, and Brooke Lavender.
That was fast.
can you just
Can
go
you
a
just-
little slower? And sorry, you're out of order. We're going off the list.
Yeah.
Just one more time.
Sorry.
Thank you.
One more time, is that what you're saying?
Please.
Yes.
Emma Kramer, Sam
Okay.
Daniels, Nathan Ellis, Aaron Ecker, Lisa Miles, Nico, and Brooke Lavender. Sorry, my
Thanks.
notes were different than the.
That's fine, thank you. And we're gonna go to Amanda.
Yes, thank you. Mine's also out of order, sorry. Nico Rains, Dave
Okay.
Hamry, Nathan Ellis, Brooke Lavender, Matthew, Aaron Eager, and Chris Wilson.
All right, then back to Mike Edgington.
Okay, Emma Kramer, Aaron Eker, Lisa Miles, Sam Daniels, Nathan Ellis, Brooke Lavender, and Nico.
Okay.
I have a point of clarification in a minute.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I don't know if Sassy voted for a tenant.
It
Yes.
probably doesn't matter, does it?
Oh.
At the end of the day, we're,
Okay,
She did.
I voted for Brooke. Is she not a tenant?
She is.
okay,
yeah, so the advantage of doing it this way is we may have to just go and get confirmation. But we still guarantee that there'll be someone who fulfills that tenancy requirement. Do you have numbers?
I think so, I'm double checking. Right, so what I think I see is Aaron Uker has, do you want me to go high to low?
Yep.
Okay, Aaron Uker has 5. And I have Nico with 5. Sam Daniels has 5. Brooke Lavender, or 4, excuse me. Brooke Lavender has 4. Dave Hamry has 3. Emma Kramer has 3. Lisa Miles has 3. Nathan Ellis has 3. Matthew Schechter has 2. Chris Wilson has 2.
I have a slightly different count, but I think I have a different number for Nathan and Chris, so I probably,
I had 4 for Nathan,
yeah, 1 for Chris, I had.
1 for Chris.
There's 2 for Chris, it's me and Amanda Sessom.
Okay,
How many people are on that list you read off of, Margaret?
I think it's the 10.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, what was the correction?
so I think it sounds like we may have, I got the same numbers, I think, as you, Kyle, so.
Nathan Ellis, I had 4. And
Yep.
Matthew Shatner had 2. And I had 1 for Chris Wilson, so I think it was 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep,
so
I see the 4th one now for Nathan Ellis, thank you.
in that case, I have the wrong number. If you can, I obviously made a mistake, I think, in Amanda's answers. So if you're convinced you have the right information, go from there. Okay,
I think you and Kyle agreed.
Yeah.
On Nathan Ellis, and I see it now too.
Right, so I make that 7. I think, is that right? So,
Make it 8.
Yes, I think if you go 3 and above, you have 8 people.
okay. Okay, so we definitely have at least one person who we believe is a tenant, said in their letter they're a tenant, with 4 points, so we know that's cleared. So am I right in thinking the Nico, Erin, Sam and Brooke are all on the list? Nathan, I think we're still unclear of, I'm still unclear whether we got a resolution as to whether there were 3 votes or 4 votes. Perhaps we can clarify that.
I had 4 for him.
There were 4.
Okay, 4. So Nathan's also in the
Yes.
2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 people. And then we had so you've got 3?
The 3s are Dave Hammering, Emma Kramer.
Yep.
Miles.
Yep, okay. Right, so that's, so our decision point is between Dave, Emma and Lisa.
It's not Dave, Emma, and Lisa?
Dave, Emma, and Lisa.
Emma and Lisa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry, no, that I'll say clearer. So my understanding is, and we can confirm, is that we have Nico, Erin, Sam, Brooke and Nathan are all on the committee. And then we had a tie between Dave, Emma and Lisa for the last 2 spots. So we just have to decide how to resolve that. So my proposal, I guess, we could just vote for 2 names out of those 3, but we're probably going to end up in the same position. So since there are 5 of us, we could just name 1 each of Dave, Emma and Lisa. I don't know the right way. Name 2 then. We'll do the same thing.
Let's just see it, but it doesn't work.
Okay, well, we can keep going around. And then we draw cards.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Oops. So what we are now going to do, second round of voting, we transfer our second preferences up, don't we? So Dave Hamry, Emma Kramer and Lisa Miles all got the same level of preference. So we are now going to, you're going to call on each of us individually and we will name 2, each of us will name 2 of those. And then if we have a time, we'll find another way to resolve it.
Okay. So Mike, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Emma and Lisa.
Brianna,
Dave and Lisa?
Jennifer,
Dave and Emma.
Guy,
Dave and Emma.
and then Amanda.
Dave and Emma.
Looks like Emma and Dave.
Yep. Resolved. Okay. So we have our 7 members. Okay. So what we'll do is informal, they'll set up a date for the first meeting, and they should elect a chair amongst themselves and go from there.
Before we leave this, could I just clarify one thing that when we were talking about, or sorry, when I mentioned having a seat, Janet, I would like to clarify that I feel like in perpetuity, and because there is perpetuity on this, that I'd like to see that be a person that in the board's estimation, or however they end up being elected, that's a person who can represent a tenant interest, but not necessarily, I don't want to put a requirement in there that they have to be a long-term tenant, particularly if they do then buy a house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a way to make sure we at least have somebody with the experience that is often missing. And so,
Right.
so
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay.
I would just like to address if anyone happens to all of a sudden not be able to serve or needs a substitute, that we could say now or just have somewhere on record that the next person nominated would be that step in if it was needed, or just clarify that it's open to the public, so encourage other people to attend the meetings.
Okay. Okay, next item is, is there any other comments? I think so thanks to everybody again who, I'll wait for the planes to go past. Okay, thanks to everyone who put their name forward. We really appreciate it. And thank you, I think, to those who were appointed. We'll now move on to item number 3, which is the joint meeting between MOA and GBOS on July the 25th. Meeting agenda discussion.
We just put this up here as that meeting is coming up, and a suggestion from us is to really be direct as to what we're looking for the city manager to address, or have staff present, and probably what we do, give an explanation with each agenda point. We have not seen a lot of response from the city manager as we have with past city managers. And so they are, I think, helping her to give her more direction will be helpful. And we used to do that with Michaelis back in the day. And so that he preferred having a little paragraph. Like, I'm just trying to pull up his agenda on here.
It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's in the meeting packet. It's a GBOS meeting.
Okay.
Which page, Margaret?
Let me, no, it's not in the packet. Let me see if I can pull it up. Back, I think towards the end, isn't it?
Yes. It was new business. It might even be the very last.
I have a question for Kyle. Or you,
Go ahead.
is he the one scrolling? What date do you think we need to have questions submitted to Amy?
Well, you guys have a meeting on the 19th, and so that's when you'll set your agenda. So if you could have your agenda questions to us by that regular meeting, that would be good. And this is what was discussed at the last meeting. And as you can see, a lot of these are just updates that we're giving her, but I don't think that is a productive time. She received these updates another way. I think really focus on any action we're trying to get the city manager to take care of for the service area. Agreed.
I'm sorry, Kyle, can you clarify that one more time? So you're saying this is what was from last time,
Correct.
but you're finding that maybe the update format is not useful. So we should have, did you say we should have specific questions that we want answered?
Correct.
For an agenda item?
If you're looking for any specific action from the city manager, I would use this meeting period to do that instead of having just a general update with her. You know, I think if anything, trying to use her time to get action done for the service area versus getting updates. She gets these updates in other ways through our work with her as staff. And so I think it's best that, you know, engage with her to do it. And, you know, I do think one thing is that, you know, I know a priority topic that's coming up for us in the next 6 months is renewing the police contract with Whittier Police. And she will need to be engaged in that as we get into the legal aspect of it. And she will eventually sign off on that contract renewal. So this will be the first time she's going through it. So yeah, probably a good time to have engaged talk with her about the expectations of what the service area needs from her office in order to accomplish this in that aspect. And then anything else that the board feels they want to talk about that maybe needs direct action from the city manager to complete.
Are you saying that, excuse me, sorry, I didn't mean to speak out of turn.
Go
Are you saying that you would guys have specific questions in regards to the police contract, or are you hoping that PSAC comes up with that, or you have some questions in mind that we could use to spark conversation around what we need to have happen to the police contract?
Yeah, I think you could start a conversation about the expectation or the past history that we've had with this police contract and determine the expectations you have of her for handling this contract going forward. So that maybe that, I think if we engage in that conversation right now, it makes it much easier as we go down the road. That she says, well, I will probably hand this to the city manager or the city lawyer to review it, and then it'll come before me. But as much as we can engage her now in that narrative, that the board sees this as a priority item, I think is very clear to her that she shouldn't be surprised by when the final document comes to her or the draft document comes to her that needs to be completed by early December at the latest, so it gets assembly approval. Don't let that contract expires December 31st. Expire on this. So I think it's good that her to understand that there are some larger items, especially like police enforcement, housing, things like that, that don't fall within department levels, that are really policy issues that really are, the departments will take care of carrying the water, but in the end, her as the city manager has a strong responsibility to make sure these things happen. Or she directs it to people who happen. So I mean, any topic that we go into a discussion with them, I think it should be something. There's a lot of these topics here, I didn't see engagement coming from her, so I'm trying to engage her more in these discussions. So I think a lot of this being very direct with her about what you guys want.
Kyle, can you share that screen? I don't think I'm getting
Oh,
it.
sorry. Oh my gosh.
Have you not been sharing through the meeting?
Yes. Okay. I just didn't scare. I was trying to find this. And what I'm sharing here is the agenda we had for the last meeting with the municipal manager.
So I mean, the meeting is obviously it's with the municipal manager, but it's also a good forum for our assembly members as well.
Correct.
So in some cases, we're not necessarily asking her for action. We may be effectively asking the assembly for action.
Correct.
But we're giving her at least a heads up on what that topic is and an opportunity to respond.
Correct.
But I agree. I think we haven't had much response back.
Correct.
Throughout these meetings.
And
So since this is schedule-wise, this is before our next HLB meeting, correct? This is our HLB. I'm reading HLB off the screen. Our GBOS meeting is that evening, isn't it? On the
no, GBOS meetings a week before.
Oh, the 18th. That's
Yes,
right.
18th is the last week of July.
Yep.
But the advisory commission is that week.
Yes. Okay. So what I suggest then is we can look at this now. We can make some changes if we want to, or anything we know now, but we should have this as a more substantial topic.
Correct.
At our next GBOS meeting.
And if you would like a department director to be there, then we can have clarification from the board. Then who would you like?
At our next GBOS meeting.
No, for this meeting, okay. You would like to have a department director for one of these topics, whatever the topics we come up with. It'd be nice to have direction from GBOS saying that GBOS has requested that the director be there to discuss this with you at the next one.
I don't know about anyone else, but I think it's very clear now that we would at least want the director of, effectively acting HLB director, or Adam to be there. And I think also there's definitely been a lot of interest in the comment on the change in hours at the transfer station. So solid waste services as well.
Okay.
I don't know what the situation is with the fire department. Maybe whether somebody else can advise whether we would want fire chief there as well.
We will check with, we are pretty much caught up on all of these items except for the long-term contract.
Yeah.
And but they are also dealing with, lack of a better term, other fires.
Yes.
Within the department. So I'll find out from chief next meeting as to what she wants to happen. They are making progress on a lot of issues, so they might choose wisely as to do whatever time.
Who would we need if we want to go into more detail about the the updates on reimbursement from the state? Does that need to be emergency management, or does that need to be Lance? Or
I can give you any update you want on that.
okay, so that's not being done through a night.
I have the assistance of the EOC, the Emergency Operations Centers, that helping me process the paperwork. And one thing that we have submitted everything to them, and they are processing it. The person that is handling our case left the state, so we're to a contractor. So it's just a matter of personnel and the state, the amount, the pace that the state can get it done for us. But we have finished all the repairs on that, and we should be receiving invoices shortly. One thing that we are working through purchasing right now is a fuel variance amendment to the service, to the road contractor, because when they did the contract, diesel was $2.85 a gallon. Now it's $6.50 or $6.25 a gallon. So they've asked for a variance, and we've had some strong disagreements with purchasing, but I think we're gonna hopefully get there this week.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention the Ruane project. We reapplied for the ARPA funding, and I'm not sure that a work session has been set yet for them to continue working on that. So this could be a meeting if they have not set that yet, or maybe even if they have. It might be good to remind the assembly members that there's support there.
But again, that's a topic which the Assembly will be deciding, so we'll be discussing that with the Assembly. I think that has already been supported by the administration.
That was, I was on their priority list. So.
Okay, is there any other topics? Sorry, Jane.
Yeah, I know we're gonna get back to this if I'm understanding it correctly, but just since it's not 9 o'clock at night and we have once, and we have a little bit of a luxury of time for once, looking at this, I have some specific questions in mind that maybe we could discuss as GBOS, that I'd like to throw them out now. And in particular, I'd like to know a date for the HLB annual work plan revisions. I would like to know a date for the HLBAC meeting that they requested, of the work session that they would have requested. And I would like to know the mechanism to address the lack of public involvement in the awarding of the RFP, in both the development and awarding of the RFP. Just potential questions, throwing them out there.
We'll put them on here so you guys can discuss them next week.
Okay.
So we just go through this, I think, just as clarification.
Guy, did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, Kyle, will you reach out to these heads of these departments, the police, HLB, solid waste, to try to get them to the meeting, or is that something we need to do? Whose action item would that be?
Well, we will work with the municipal manager's office to have the municipal manager invite them. And we'll explain the historical nature of how that's happened with past municipal managers. They usually call everybody up. Like, for example, George Michaelis was the municipal manager under Sullivan, and he would just invite all the directors and have people there who probably didn't need to be there, but just in case questions came up. So, in years past with Ballsy and Abbott, they just invited the director that was associated with the agenda topic. So we'll work with them to do that. And so hopefully the municipal manager will be able to make that happen for us, or her staff at least.
Thank you.
Al, do you want to just quickly go through these?
Yeah, so just want to see if they want to stay on the list or not. So the storm damages, would you like to continue that discussion?
What do we need from MOA?
At this point in time, I do not need anything from MOA. We're working through it, so we have support.
I would say to take that one off.
Okay. Gerwood fire topics, status of the EMS contract. Okay. $15,000 area-wide. That was resolved with first quarter revisions. Gerwood EMS funding as a line item in future AFD budgets. That has not been confirmed. That
It has been confirmed.
has not,
That's not, yes.
has not.
I think that's assembly as much as it is administration. I think I can do that.
Yeah, the assembly could ask for it to be called.
I think I'd like to see that remain on there
Yes.
until it's resolved.
Okay.
Agree.
Area-wide first quarter revision request for extraction equipment. I think that has been, well, that has been resolved because area-wide first quarter budget is complete. So, and then HLB topics, and I think we've got questions with this, with it, work plan revisions as determining when is there going to be a date to discuss the work plan. And then the Gerwood resident 2021 project, Holton Hills. So the Holton Hills project, was there a question directly with that?
I think it was when is the HLBAC work session, which I think you mean is jointly with the committee here, or?
It was they asked for at the last HLB advisory commission, the commissioners asked for a work session on the project.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. And then questions related to public involvement with the development agreement and with the actual RFP. That's the other question that I think, a set of questions. So I think those are the HLB topics.
We can probably also, although it kind of falls under the annual work plan, the industrial park plan as well. What's going on with the industrial park? The last we'd heard is there was a potential proposal to put it out to public bid.
Okay.
Okay. The Glacier Creek Bridge status, of funding and project design. A quick synopsis of that is we made it past the governor's veto pen. There's 1.2 million coming to the service area for the bridge. We have funding already designated that was previously CARES Act funding for the design. We received a design proposal last week and a meeting with the outgoing and the incoming parks directors. Josh Duran is leaving and Mike Braniff is coming in as the new parks director. Meeting with them tomorrow to go through that proposal and potentially set up a PO to get the design team started. And we're working in conjunction with U.S. Forest Service, as the U.S. Forest Service has design requirements. So we actually have 2 structural engineers working this project to design a bridge that the Forest Service will accept and take on for future maintenance. So at this point in time, the municipal manager is aware of this. And we're briefing her as we forward on these different steps here. So
I was going to suggest to take it off, but if there's a new person from Parks and Rec, does that matter? The update?
Because I'll be working with them individually. Unless there's some action the board wants to give directly to or question to the Parks Director. I'll keep you abreast. I don't think anything's going to be. I think the transition will be fine. Worked with Mike Brown for years in the private sector and now through the city. So I think he understands what we're trying to do. AWU, I think that's been resolved. We've been resolved on that. Funding for Gerwood area plan, Imagine Gerwood, did that come through?
That's unclear, so that would be possibly good to get from planning.
Okay. And then
Amanda, do you have thoughts on that? I'm not sure it's completely the right place for it. But Amanda, do you have any thoughts?
Can you repeat? It's a little garbled.
Item number 6.
There's really no update, honestly.
But is this something we want to talk to municipal manager and planning department on?
Yeah. I mean, well, no, Assembly is going to be the one doing the real funding allocation, so.
Did the assembly approve it in the first quarter? The funding for this, or
it was the first quarter? There's an ARPA application, but there's also some action by planning. So it probably is worth keeping on.
Okay. And then the status of HB.
You don't need to discuss that.
Okay.
It either has or hasn't been. I don't know if that's been signed yet. But it's at the Devlin's desk as a last Friday.
Okay. And then discussion of the Gerwood transfer station schedule and possible solution for transport. Okay, we'll keep those on here, and if you have any more questions that go with each of these items, if you have another item, just let us know. We'll get that resolved.
I've got a specific question on the last one. In code, Girdwood service area is also responsible for solid waste, or can be responsible for solid waste services. And I'm sure that's just a problem, a mistake that needs to be corrected. But maybe we can do something. So getting some clarification on what that means.
You need tax for it,
I don't know. I mean, maybe we can spend money on it.
should be taxing for it.
Yeah. Well, yes, but we wouldn't necessarily raise another tax. So.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, the solid waste services runs as an enterprise. They fee-based, non-tax revenue. And so, yeah, that would be an option. They'd be open for that.
Something sort of related to number 8, I think it was a year ago already that the question got, as far as the municipal manager and back looping, circling around to solid waste services for the bear resistant or bear proof trash cans out here. And then nothing really happened that I know of. So we asked for sooner this time.
That was about the, so Alaska Waste are the ones who provide the curbside service, and the cans they provided don't meet the requirements of code. And the administration at the time took the opinion that, well, maybe they will eventually. I'm slightly mischaracterizing it, but they didn't really want to do anything about it. So definitely that could be a discussion, which would also be I don't think that falls under solid waste services. That falls under environmental. So the area Jack Frost ran before he retired.
Yeah, land use enforcement, and
I think it's actually under the environmental requirements. It's chapter 15, if I remember correctly.
correct, but they would enforce it on our land use code, land use enforcement division. And the way I remember this ended on that, it was sort of a three-way effort that was going on between Bearware, John Wellington, and Jack Frost and code enforcement. And John was sort of going to lead the charge on helping to change code to strengthen. There's some issues that had to be strengthened in there, so things were requests. And that just sort of fizzled out with other priorities going on.
Yeah, so it probably is worth putting that back on, as whether it be, I don't know if it's under solid waste or enforcement.
Sure. I think that'd be a key as to who leads that discussion and what points are made. Okay. We'll write it in, but it'd be good somebody who's really knowledgeable about what they want changed in code or what they want enforced in code. Okay. Ask for the new code enforcement director to be there.
Is there anything missing that we need to be discussing with MLA administration? I mean, obviously we've got big topics here. Kristen.
Thank you. So on here, I'm seeing the Ruane Road ARPA request and Imagine Girdwood's ARPA request. And is it possible that Girdwood Inc.'s ARPA request could be a part of the conversation? Because we're trying to address the Girdwood childcare, which I think, if in my personal opinion, if I were to rank our needs, childcare would fall before Ruane. That's a personal opinion, but I think we have a great deal of community support for the childcare to be funded. I think that Imagine Girdwood will pass the ARPA money I'm hoping for, and I think that's looking good. But I attended the first work session where Ruane Road was not highly supported by Assembly, and I don't know if you guys listened to that or not, but there was quite a bit of discussion. I would say at least 15 minutes of discussion about the Ruane Road request. And I think that they felt like it should fall under different funding channels. So anyway, I'm hoping that we will be successful. There is a work session on Thursday for the ARPA, and I'm hoping that the childcare will get something out of that. But I think if it does not, we need to start engaging with the media again in helping, because I believe that we will not get anywhere on the Girdwood childcare effort unless the muni starts engaging and whether that be funding or via land. So
this is actually this is also a discussion with the assembly members as well. So it's within that. As far as the ARPA funding is concerned, or the ARPA allocation, it definitely falls within that category. I think that's a good point. Okay. Maybe there should be a section on ARPA funding.
You want us to put it all in our?
Maybe that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
We can do that. Yeah, I'll have it.
Anything else? Okay. Done item number 3. Public comment. Persons offering public comment. I'll state their name and full name and address. Public comments limited to 3 minutes per person. Must be on subjects not listed on the agenda. One quick thing to say, as kind of many people know, we lost an important and valued community member over the weekend, and I just wanted to, without saying too much, I just wanted to take a moment just to remember people are okay, just having sort of 30 seconds or so of quiet. Thank you. Any other comments? If not, we'll go straight to adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
I'm freezing. I know, I'm roasting. It's freezing.